That Gustavo is not here with the handouts yet, so hopefully he will make it in a little bit. And can you hear me in the back? My voice is a little croaky today, so I cannot yell. All right, great. So today we are going to talk about the circle of life. From the time that proteins are born until the time they are destroyed, they die by degradation. So thank you for completing homework number 1. And homework number 2 is already posted on Canvas. It's going to be due a week from today. We've posted some pre-classing for Thursday. The lecture, we're going to start talking about membranes starting next lecture. So there's some basic concepts that we want you to review before coming to class, so we can have a deeper discussion of cell biology of membranes and membrane traffic. Membrane traffic is going to span over about 5 lectures. We're going to talk a lot about mechanisms of membrane transport in cells. Really exciting thing. I'm going to be asking you a lot of instable questions today, and very soon, so you might want to get that activated as we go. I want to just starting by showing you this movie that I like a lot. That kind of gives an overview of the function of chaperones that I asked you to read ahead of today. So as I talked last time, chaperones, all cells have chaperones, which are very important to facilitate, regulate the folding of proteins, the correct folding of proteins, and monitor the folding state of proteins in cells, and bind to unfold the proteins to use the energy of ATP to help them fold. The proteins that we are considering are the generic type that you find all the way from E. coli to mammals. But also you should be aware, we're not going to cover, but you should be aware that there are much more specialized chaperones. There are some proteins, large proteins, or protein complexes that are really difficult to fold in the correct way. And they need especially accessory proteins that will facilitate that job. And these little proteins might or might not be a little bit involved in that, but definitely there's the family of chaperone proteins is much larger than these ones we're covering here. So you might run into them at some point in the future. So in this movie is an animation of protein synthesis through ribosomes. So here's the mRNA. The nascent polypeptides coming out of the ribosomes. And the idea is that because they're not folded yet, they're going to be bound by chaperones that are going to bind to them and help them fold using the energy of ATP. Or alternatively, they might deliver them to, if they cannot be delivered by folded by HSP70 alone, they might be delivered to HSP60. Now this looks like it's on purpose swimming in the right direction, but that's not going to happen. It's just a random movement. So they deliver into the folding chamber of HSPC complexes. There's a lid component that actually covers that. So it makes a little microwave oven where using the energy of ATP cooks it. And how do you know it's correctly folded? Because it sparkles. So that's the general idea. And these proteins are very important in general because without them, some proteins might try to fold correctly, but there's going to be a high risk for all proteins to begin to tangle with each other. As we know there's multiple ribosomes close to each other. Those 2 nascent proteins that are not folded yet might begin to interact with their hydrophobic side chains and begin to form a tangled mess. And that mess is going to be insoluble, is not going to be tractable in any other way by the cell, and it might kill the cell. So diseases of improper folding of proteins range all the way from Alzheimer's to many other mad cow disease, other type of phenomena like that. So these proteins are extremely important. Why do we call them heat shock proteins? What do you think? They're heat shock protein 70, heat shock protein 60.
They help refold partially denatured proteins that were denatured with heat.
Exactly, right? So they were originally discovered because they were abundantly expressed in organisms that were exposed to an increased temperature. At increased temperature, the proteins begin to unfold or not correctly fold as they're being synthesized, so the cells respond by making a lot of these proteins. So it's a historical name. So I asked you to read something online, so let me ask you a couple of questions to see where we are and we have a good understanding. And while you answer that, Gustavo is going to distribute the handouts. Perfect timing. So let me send it. And there it is. And notice that this question is asking you for false statements. So there's 4 correct and 1 false. It looks like you need to talk with each other about it. So look at your notes, talk to each other, and try to find the false statement.
Yeah, thank you.
I just remember that this like HSP 60.
All right, anybody needs a handout? Anybody missing a handout? All right, give me your vote again, please. Let's see if you guys figure it out. Everybody's starting. And then it goes 61 to 60. So, okay, great. So I'm going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So the false statement here is that some proteins are folded only by HSP60 and do not need HSP70. Because what the textbook tells us is that HSP70 binds to proteins as soon as they are coming out of the ribosome. So that would apply for all proteins. So all nascent proteins are going to be bound by HSP70. HSP70 may try to fold those, can fold a whole bunch of proteins, but some larger, more complex proteins cannot be folded by HSP70. So SHP-70 will donate them to the HSP-60 folding chamber, as we saw in the movie, right? So that's why that's the wrong statement. And all the other ones are correct. So HSP-70 binds the proteins as they come out of the ribosome, as shown in the movie. HSP-60 binds the proteins after they have been completely synthesized, because it doesn't bind as they're coming out of the ribosome. That's the function of HSP-70. And HSP-70 then delivers them to HSP-60, so they have been completely synthesized. So that is true. The proteins are folded only by HSP-70 and do not need HSP-60. That is also true. HSP-70 can fold a whole collection of proteins by itself. And most proteins need the assistance of chaperones to fall inside the cell. That is true. There's just, I cannot think of an exception to that rule in a living cell. Outside of cell, pure proteins, yeah, there are some proteins that you can denature them and they will snap back without any help. That is also true. But those are the exceptions. All right, next question. Right here. And read it while I activate this. That's the same. Here we go. Okay, here we have a very strong consensus, so won't elaborate much, that HSP-70 in chaperones in general binds to patches of hydrophobic amino acids on other proteins. That is how we recognize, or how they recognize that a protein is misfolded. In general, most of the hydrophobic amino acids are in a folded protein are buried in the interior of the folded protein. There's just like single hydrophobic amino acids that can be exposed, but a large patch of hydrophobic amino acids is not going to be prevalent in folded proteins. So any stretch of, say, 4 or 5 hydrophobic amino acids will be a perfect binding site for HSP-70. HSP-60 also falls to hydrophobic amino acids. They are in the interior of the chamber. There are binding sites that bind to those hydrophobic sites and then help fold the protein in ways that are still being studied. All right? Any questions on basic concepts of chaperones? Cool. A note of clarification about your grade in Instaful. So I set up the questions for you all, and then I repeat those questions for the afternoon class, and you will not get credit for the afternoon class. So your scores, as indicated in the gradebook of UT Instapol, are meaningless. All right, so do not look on the gradebook at the UT Instapol grade because you're going to be scared. All right, so what we are going to do is that right before, with every exam, we are going to tally up all the participation points. Remember, you just need 1 per day, and then we're going to post that tally by ourselves on campus. All right? Great. So I want to talk